No intro needed. Vlad Dracula in 1459 attacked this church near Brasov, and when he didn't take it, instead he impaled 12 Saxon men on that hill right behind me. The Brasov sign on the hill's totally vanished. It's just whatever is.
I'm in Whitby on the North Yorkshire coast, a beautiful and picturesque and windy town that saw its tourism boom following the release of the 1897 classic novel Dracula. But how much can we walk in the footsteps of Dracula by wandering around this beautiful town?
The author, Bram Stoker, is said to have fallen in love with Whitby. He spent much of his time visiting this town.
Bram Stoker is known to have stayed in Whitby for many years. In fact, it was that peach-coloured guest house where he spent most of his time, and many of the ideas that he saw, the influences of Whitby, swirled in his head as he wrote his classic gothic novel. In fact, it's up for sale. So if you've got a spare 300 grand and you want an apartment up there, you can have it.
The story follows an English solicitor called Jonathan Harker, who meets Dracula at his Transylvanian castle to help him purchase a house in London. When Dracula attempts to head to England on a ship called the Demeter, it runs aground at Whitby. And it is these 199 steps that Dracula runs up in the form of a black dog when he arrives. And those 199 steps are real. You can walk up them to the actual graveyard at the top. It's said that if you walk up and you count 198 or 200, you'll have to go back and recount them again to avoid getting any bad luck. And what about Dracula arriving in the town via a ship which wrecks off the coast? Well, Bram Stoker got inspiration for this from a conversation he had with local fishermen on the quays, who told him a real-life story about a Russian schooner that was wrecked here whilst on its way up the coast to Newcastle. And this seat in St Mary's is where one of the main characters, Lucy, is attacked by Dracula. It was known to be a favourite of Stoker's to sit and admire the views when he was here. Not many people know this, but Bram Stoker's first plan was to write about a character from the Styrian region of Austria called Vampire. That's spelt the Germanic way with a W. But there is already a famous book from here called Carmilla. Whilst reading a book here in Whitby about a notorious prince from Wallachia who would impale enemies on wooden stakes, the idea of Dracula would come about, and the rest is history. Every morning, Stoker had to leave his bedroom whilst it was being cleaned out.
And it was whilst having his guest room cleaned out each morning that Bram Stoker would come and admire this view looking over the town of Whitby. In fact, it said that this is the exact bench he would sit on every morning, this exact spot right here, and he would take in this view. It's even got a plaque on it where he would be able to see the church, the abbey, the 199 steps, and as well that beautiful view of the coastal town of Whitby, all inspired on this bench.
Although it wasn't this exact bench, it's been replaced, but the plaque says that the bench was on this spot. It took Stoker 6 years to finalise the Dracula novel. If you ever visit Whitby, you will see on display the first edition, signed by Bram Stoker himself. The book is so popular, it has never been out of production. A word of warning: it is a hard read. It was written in the 19th century, so some of the language and the wording is, well, how you would have written it back then. I struggled to get past the midpoint of it. If you're more into films, well, IMDb lists 82 Dracula films, obviously some more low budget than others, but very few stick to the original plot and setting. I recommend the 1977 BBC film Count Dracula. It sticks to the original storyline very closely, and they actually used real locations in Whitby. But Dracula is just a story. The events in the novel and the films are nothing more than fiction. Who was this character though, who inspired such a beast? How could one human being be responsible for this supernatural monster who has become a cult classic? I was in Whitby's infamous graveyard when I saw this sign, and since seeing it, it has given me a bit of an ick. I don't like it, and I want it removed because factually, it's wrong. But there is a real Dracula, and he is probably more scary than any fictional monster can ever be. He killed thousands of people and was described by his enemies and friends as cruel, who took pleasure from sadistic methods of killing. He never set foot in Whitby or even in the UK, as a matter of fact, but I've been fascinated by this man for years, and I wanted to walk in his footsteps because, trust me, this man is far more interesting than a character from a gothic novel. You're going to enjoy this. I'm going to take you to real-life locations linked to the real Dracula, and see where his trail of torture, death and destruction saw him become one of the most ruthless and infamous medieval people in the world. And for this, I'm flying off to Wallachia, which no longer exists, so I'm off to Romania. I took a flight straight to Cluj-Napoca, the capital and largest city in the region of Transylvania. You have to admit, it's not the Transylvania they portray in the films, and it's a lot hotter here than in Whitby. In fact, it's over 30 degrees. From there, I headed to Sighisoara, a town that can trace its origins to 12th century Germanic craftsmen who settled here on land given to them by the King of Hungary. They became known as the Transylvanian Saxons.
It's hard to imagine how this place can have anything in common with Whitby or the North Yorkshire Moors, but this is the birthplace of Dracula. Literally, right there in that yellow building.
To understand naming confusion, let me just explain. You might hear me refer to several characters by different names, all of which are correct. Vlad's father was called Vlad Dracula, the word Dracul meaning dragon in English, but is also another word for devil in Romanian. His son also took the Order of the Dragon, so added an A on the end of Dracul to become Dracula, meaning son of the dragon, or also son of the devil. You might also hear me call him Tepesh. This is the Romanian word for impaler. He was never actually known by this name until many years after his death, but I hope that clears things up. Today, this house is a restaurant and gift shop, the Casa Vlad Dracula, but this is the building where it is believed Dracula was born sometime between 1428 and 1431, although most scholars lean towards 1431.
It's not guaranteed that Vlad Dracula was born in that yellow building behind me. It's rather assumed. We know that his father, Vlad Dracula, and his pregnant mistress were given a place to stay because this place was so heavily fortified and ran by German Saxons that he was friendly with. So we know that he was living there around the time of Dracula's birth in 1431.
It was originally a one-storey house, although today it has been built up, and in 1976, on the 500th anniversary of Vlad's death, it reopened after restoration.
The building today has got many different purposes. If you look around the side, which is the way into the ground floor, which would have been the rooms where Vlad was born, probably, that's now a gift shop. So you can go in there, you can get your fridge magnets, you can get your tea towels and your t-shirts and your key rings. And then round the side here, different archways leading inside. And if we just walk through here, there's also a restaurant as well, which uses the upstairs and around the back of the building, which I'll show you some food. The restaurant, the Casa Vlad Dracula, up on the first floor, and just there you can see the plaque on the wall to say that Vlad Dracula lived here. Vlad Dracula was born here in 1431.
I'm going to take a look inside and maybe grab some food. The restaurant itself is worth a visit. I found the food delicious, and it runs outside onto a raised area above what I believe would have been a former courtyard, possibly where families living here would have played, socialised and worked. It's not posh, but you can certainly get some cool napkins as souvenirs. Upstairs, the restaurant has an exhibit that you can go through and see. Even though this floor never existed in Dracula's day, but we can pretend that this was the bedroom where he could have lived. Get ready for a few cheap scares for kids, and yes, that is a real man in a mask who gets paid to lie in a coffin all day. With Vlad more likely to have been born downstairs in the building, I was given permission to record inside the gift shop, which uses the ground floor rooms.
This is inside Vlad Tepes's house that he was born in. We know he was born on the ground floor because there wasn't any other floors at the time. They were added in different time eras. But look, you can see the original brickwork, original archways. One of these rooms, Vlad Tepes, Vlad Dracula was born. And now it's all souvenirs. Look at your Dracula chopping boards, fridge magnets. It's believed that Vlad Dracula lived here up until about the ages of either 4 or 5, and then the family are documented as moving away. But it's so strange to think that these cobbled paths, cobbled pavements, little side streets were what he might have played in. He walked here. He walked maybe to this church behind me.
Although I don't think this train existed in Vlad's day. Sighisoara does have one thing in common with Whitby: death stairs. These are the Shah stairs, a covered stairway that leads up to the citadel and graveyard. However, I can guarantee that Dracula never climbed these, as these were constructed in 1642, a couple of centuries after Vlad walked around here. There was originally 300 steps, although today only 176 remain. Vlad lived here until around the age of 4, when it is documented that the family left this safe house in 1435. Vlad's youngest brother Radu was born on that year too, but whether it was here we don't know. It's actually a mystery who Vlad's mother actually was, as his father was known to have had several mistresses, but a local boyar or a daughter of a Moldovan prince are the two most likely. It's quite probable that his offspring went into double figures. During Vlad Dracula's years as a child, he was taught at home by court ladies and local boyars. The brothers were taught how different they were to the other children. They were dressed differently and would start ordering around other children. Even a child as young as 5, he was expected to be able to ride an unsaddled horse and gallop to a nearby fountain and back and do laps of a local field. They were also entertained by puppet theatres, which also formed part of their education by using historical figures as well as regular street performers such as acrobats and jugglers. This was common as a form of entertainment in this part of the world. In the winter, they would hunt for eagles in the woods and the hills around town. Next to Vlad's house was the Councillor's Square, which was the local jail. Many criminals would lead from this building and be executed. Some historians claim that a local tradition is to make young boys watch executions from an early age. Young Vlad would have been exposed to death barely 4 years old, at such an important part of his development. With it being so close to home, could this have had a factor in the cruelty that he would unleash upon hundreds of thousands of people in later life? You can also see from this angle just how close Vlad Dracula would have been to the local prison. He was exposed to prisoners from quite an early age, taught to spit on them, talk down to them. He would have seen them being marched up here to their executions regularly. In order to see where Vlad's reign of terror and destruction took place, we need to head to his royal palace in the city of Targoviste, once the capital of Wallachia. He first moved here as a child around the age of 5 when his father seized the throne from his own brother, Alexandru. Vlad Dracula was now Prince of Wallachia. The next bit of geopolitics is quite complicated. Wallachia is sandwiched between two superpowers, the Ottoman Empire to the south, and to the north, John Hunyadi's Hungarian Empire. Vlad Dracula wanted to stay faithful to both, and didn't really want to take sides, but the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire didn't trust him. He invited Dracula and 3 of his sons, Mircea, Radu, and Vlad Dracula, to Constantinople, which is now Istanbul. It is there they were imprisoned. Dracula was released, but his sons were not. They were held captive here, Vlad Dracula, for up to 6 years, although it is said they were treated quite well here. This was a pawn move by the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire to make sure he always had the trust of Vlad Dracula. He was eventually freed in 1448, however, his brother Radu stayed for another 14 years. Despite breaking his promise, Dracula had risked his sons' lives, but the Sultan decided to spare the boys, instead using them as a pawn to make another peace deal. Meanwhile, Vlad's brother Mircea was captured in Targoviste during a boyar revolt and was burned alive. Dracula attempted to flee the fighting, but was captured and killed in a village close to Bucharest. Vlad Dracula became a natural heir to the throne and ruled Wallachia for around a month before he was ousted by Vladislav II with Hungarian support. However, in 1456, Dracula invaded Wallachia and took back the title, and once running the capital again, he made Targoviste a fortress. He also vowed to kill those responsible for his father and brother's deaths, which he did, and buried them alive. A comet visible in the night sky, first documented by Chinese astronomers in June 1456 foretold bad luck, an evil ruler, and the misery of thousands. This coincided with Vlad Dracula taking the throne in Wallachia. Documentations of Vlad's impaling started in the year he was the Prince of Wallachia, 1456. The first documented individual to be impaled was a boyar called Albu the Great, who had been an opponent of his father and had tried to organise a revolt against Dracula when he seized power. He was ambushed, impaled, accompanied by his own children. This would be a theme that would be recurring. Many people may believe it was just a myth, a legend of simply a piece of fiction to scare his rivals, but documents have appeared by the Turks, the Serbs, the German Saxons, and the Hungarians in their own lands, detailing mass deaths caused by Vlad impaling. Remember, this was before the internet, and many of these were first-hand accounts in letter form. In 1459, German chronicles mention that Vlad broke into Transylvania and plundered villages around Brasov and Sibiu. It was texts in German that first mention his army carrying men, women, and children from Saxon villages, having them impaled. This was in response to the threat that Saxons had of overthrowing him. The conflict with the Saxons started when Vlad strengthened the borders of Wallachia, which had an effect on the Saxons trading in Transylvania. Vlad, who grew up in a Saxon town himself, knew their way of fighting, so he knew he could not go straight in. He decided to ransack all the suburbs at night, taking it by surprise before anybody could retreat to safety. Everybody that he caught was impaled on the surrounding hills, and it is said that thousands died. Vlad made sure that even the families of those resisting him also paid the price. Children and young babies are said to have been found on top of stakes on the outskirts of Brasov. Pope Pius II wrote about Vlad the Impaler. Word had got back to the Vatican after a Catholic monk escaped from Vlad's prison. He claimed that Vlad had 2 monks impaled to assist them going to heaven. He also had their donkey impaled because it began braying at the sound of the men screaming as their bodies slid down the stakes while they were alive. We talk about the dark side of Vlad, but little is known about his love life. However, despite his turbulent past with the town of Brasov, it is here that he met a very special lady. What was Vlad like as a person? We know he was an impaler, we know he was a ruthless leader, but he was also said to be a very affectionate man, a very romantic man as well. And behind me in one of those houses was one of his lovers, Catherina. According to some legends, Vlad fell in love with a woman outside the Black Church in Brasov. But there's also another version of the story that said that he saw Catherina through the window of her home and fell in love with her and waited for her to come out, and was apparently very angry at her father, who was very protective of his own daughter. If that version of the legend is true, that means Vlad walked down this street to where Catherina's house is and looked through one of these windows. Her portrait is still up there, and that is inside the house. Dan III was the brother of Vladislav II of Wallachia, whom Dracula had killed to get to the throne. Dan was living here in Brasov and was offering to fight for the Saxons. Vlad had already impaled 41 young Saxons who travelled to Wallachia to learn the language, suspecting them of being spies. Dracula invaded the Transylvanian town in the winter of 1459, wiping out entire villages around the city, killing and taking prisoners who were sent back to Targoviste. Anybody who was supporting Dan was butchered on the spot. Most of these raids happened at night, and it was people living on the foot of the hills that were the target, as they were close to where a fort had been built, the city having walls around it. Dan wasn't in Brasov. He was hiding at an estate of a local boyar in the countryside. Some say it may have even been Bran Castle. When Dan was captured, Dracula ordered a priest to wear full funeral garments and perform a ceremony, while his arch-enemy was still alive so that he could hear it. Dan was forced to dig his own grave before Dracula stood over him, beheading him personally. Of course, all of Dan's captured men were slowly dying in the background whilst all of this was going on. His personal vendettas always had the worst punishments. Vlad's final enemy that he wanted to remove was a man called Vlad the Monk, who was now hiding, knowing his fate. Vlad had every village suspected of hiding him burnt to the ground. It's documented that entire villages had to be repopulated after this. Vlad Dracula never captured his man. I mentioned Bran Castle, often called Dracula's Castle. Ignore it. He never went there. It's a tourist trap and has literally no connection at all to the real Dracula. Only go there if you enjoy long queues of tourists and being sold keyrings and fridge magnets. It's only 20 minutes or so from Brasov, so it's worth a day out if you're there. This is St. Bartholomew's Church, outside of Brasov. Vlad had this building sieged, and he captured around 12 Saxon merchants hiding inside and had them impaled on the hill directly opposite, accusing them of not paying taxes to him. Vlad never got to take the church, which has since been rebuilt. This is the first location I will conduct an overnight paranormal investigation from. It's been raining all day and the rocks on the hillside are wet and are almost impossible to climb safely, as you can see. The hill has been excavated in modern times, allowing me to technically get within the outline of the hill. I have decided that here is a safe place to see if I can investigate an exact site where Vlad Dracula had people impaled.
I am on the side of the hill. We are on the outskirts of Brasov. We found a very small window of time to be able to come out and do this because, as you can hear, there's still traffic going around. It's not as late at night as I would have hoped. It's still 10 something PM, so there are still cars around. There is a main road that goes past here, but it's a window in the rain. As you can hear, the cars that are going past it, the road has been wet. It's been raining pretty much for the last 3 hours, and it's going to start raining again. So this is kind of like a now. I want to get out here. I want to do it while I'm in this part of Romania, because I might never get the chance to come and do this place again. This spot behind me, this hill, is where Vlad Tepesh, Vlad Dracula, also known as Vlad the Impaler, impaled 12 people. It took 2 days for the last one to die. Let's go. I haven't had a chance to come up here in the daytime simply because the weather has been so atrocious, so I'm going to have to come quickly tomorrow morning because I've got to get a bus out of Brasov to go to the next destination. I think that's some sort of industrial unit over there. You can see the hill where in 1459 Vlad Dracula had 12 people impaled. Look, you can see a cross. I don't know if you can see it on the night vision. There's a cross up there as well. Let's get into this. Getting up there, I think, is going to be too dangerous tonight. It's a rock face. It's slippy. It's shiny rock. And the only way from the other side to get up is through a very steep grass embankment, which in this weather, it's just too muddy. It's too slippy. So this is the closest we can get to the top of the hill. But we are going to try and take some full spectrum camera pictures. We're going to take some FLIR images as well with the thermal camera, and we're going to see what we can get. Now, I will say we are close to the outskirts of Brasov. I mean, over there you can see lights from the city. There's a crane. You can see the illuminated Hollywood sign style Brasov is illuminated tonight. You can't really see it very well on the night vision. It's just it's that light there. I'm not going to zoom in on it actually. No, it's too far away. I was up there earlier today actually. I'm going to introduce myself using the translation app. Hello, my name is Rob. I am here to speak to any spirits that may still be around on this land. You can see a lot of people do come up here. This is essentially just a bit of wasteland now. I'm looking at some sort of concrete structure in front of me. I wonder how far their screams would have gone. These were men who were impaled. Let me tell you how Vlad impaled people if you haven't watched my full video on Vlad Dracula. He didn't want you to die quickly. In fact, the stakes he put people on were not sharp at all. They were blunt, but he would have them greased. Thick grease on them. You could slide your hand straight up them. His victim would be stripped. Their legs would be pulled apart, usually by a horse. Although, on a case like this where Vlad's not on his own turf, he might have just done it for quickness and had some men hold the legs apart. But certainly back in Tagovish day, Vlad would have done his own way of doing it. Legs would have been pulled apart. The stake would have been inserted. Use your imagination for that bit. But Vlad was an expert at it. He knew how to not kill somebody straight away. That stake missed every vital organ in the human body. It would follow the line, the trajectory of the human spine, but it would crush and snap every bone from your pelvis, your rib cage, probably your shoulder bone. It didn't come out your neck, it didn't come out your mouth like some depictions of it would have. It came out your shoulder. You were impaled through your torso and out your shoulder. That's how he did it. Then gravity would cause you to slide. So you were never at the top of the stake. You would eventually slide down until it got thicker and thicker. It would just rip open every little bit of muscle, tissue in your body. And you weren't dead. You were still very much alive. It said Vlad would sit in his tower in Tagovish day. He used to love hearing the cries from people, men, women, anybody. I'm hearing noises to the left. Hello? Is there someone here? shape in the middle of my camera. I don't think it's paranormal. I can't really get too close, so I don't know how stable all of this is. Hello. Do you know Vlad Dracula? Dracula. Vlad Tepesh. Did he impale you on this very site in front of the church, St. Bartholomew's? I keep hearing a noise. It sounds like, you know, when they fit tyres on cars. What the hell was that? I heard a car horn, but I heard like a squeal. I have my voice recorder. Hello? Anybody here who knows Vlad Tepesh? Are you a Saxon? Hello? I'm not experiencing anything. Whoa, I just dropped down a big gap. This isn't a full dead air investigation. We can't really get far up there. This is the closest really that is for now with this weather. Let me go a little bit closer. The size of that snail. Got the ghost tubes here on. Yeah, I'm hearing noises up there. Hello? What did it feel like to be impaled? I mean, I'm guessing it was very... I've got a candle come up. This is the only exact location where we know where people were impaled. A lot of the locations that Dracula had people impaled are descriptions of nearabouts, but there's none where it's like this exact point here, except here. I mean, we're going to go to Targovishte, to the Royal Palace. We know he did some impaling near the Royal Palace, but the exact spot is, it's been lost over history. Buildings get added. The town expands. You know, all of a sudden, now, a strange phenomenon, well, not a strange phenomenon, but I'm looking up at the Tampa Mountain where the Brasov sign is, and I'm watching it disappear. because there was a cloud coming over, and I'm guessing that's rain. We aren't going to be here for too long. Where was that snail? I don't want to stand on him or her. Let's go further in. My feet are soaked through. These are the only pair of shoes I've got. I've got some walking boots, but they're very thick for hiking, and I've got to get through. I'm getting attacked by moths. I've got to get to Bucharest, Târgoviște, various other places in Romania on this trip. Hello? I so wish I could be at the top of that hill, but it was too unsafe. The only way up would have been a hike up, and it was a rock face. It was like crumbly rock, but it was smooth like marble. It's soaking wet. Coming down it would have been too dangerous. So this is the best we can get. I heard a noise over there. Hello? Somebody there? Did you hear that at home? It's something on the side of the rock face. Dip my light a bit. Let's see if I can zoom in. Hello? Noises behind me as well. That was a twig snap. I get it, there's animals here. There will be animals here. I don't know what animals, but there will be. Should we take some pictures on the full spectrum? The full spectrum camera takes pictures at the full light spectrum. Some people believe that spirits are... I'm sure I saw a flashing light there. Flash. So you saw that in infrared. Because obviously there's an infrared filter. I want to do a shout out to Andy from Infrareddy for building this camera that takes pictures in full spectrum. Flash. Flash. Flash.
I used the FLIR thermal imaging camera as well, but the problem was the sides of the rocks absorbed so much heat it was just a wall of orange.
Okay, I'm using a voice bank of sounds that spirits are said to be able to manipulate and create words. So let's see if we can get anyone in here tonight. Hello? How many spirits are here? Are you from the 15th century? Do you know Vlad? Vlad. Did he impale you? Right here in Brasov. I've given it a bit of a brr sound. That's got a Brasov. Are you Saxon? The Brasov sign on the hill's totally vanished. It's just whatever is. What the hell? Something's over there. I think it's an animal. What the hell? It sounded like half the rock face was falling down. I hope you heard that. I hope you heard that. I know they've got some animals over here that you really don't want to bump into. Normally you would see the eyes if it was watching me. I'm not seeing eyes. It has been raining, so I don't know if that can cause little localised rock falls, but I'm sort of moving just in case there is something here. Not paranormal, but something living. I need to get out of here quick. What's the chances though? I was hearing it over there. Whatever it is, it's moved over there. Nothing was showing up on the FLIR though. Don't stand on that snail. Hello? It could just be like part of the rock sliding down because they've had a bit of rain today. The Brasov sign on the hill's totally vanished. It's just whatever is. The Brasov sign on the hill's totally vanished. It's just whatever is. I'm still hearing noises everywhere. EVP session. Is there someone here with me? Anybody here with me? Can you say any word? I'm going to put my phone on flight mode for a second. There we go. So that I can whoa, we are getting some EMF signal. It's coming up as mixed. It's not someone's phone, it's not my phone. You saw me put it on flight mode. It's not the camera. There are some power cables over here. I just want to debunk that. Sorry, I'm carrying out 5 different things in my hands at once. Is this? Yeah, look, it's going up. It's getting stronger, and I think it's a power cable. I think it's caused by a power cable over here. Yeah, it's getting ridiculously high. We got a high spike of it before, but it's starting to rain. Here comes the rain. We had a small window of opportunity to get in here. I did it.
In part 2, I travel to Targoviste and the site of the infamous Forest of the Impaled, and I visit the real site where Vlad Dracula was killed.